February 12th, 2025 Lower Merion Board of Commissioners meetings. We have 3 meetings this evening: Building and Planning, Public Works, and Finance Committees. Before we start, please silence your cell phones. Amplifying equipment is available for those having difficulty hearing during the meeting, and the room is also equipped with telecoil technology. When the floor is open for public comment, comment will first be taken from those present in the room and then from those attending virtually. Please introduce yourself before beginning your comments. And before we proceed, I'd like to make one announcement. We'd like to let everybody know that next Tuesday, February 18th at 7 p.m. here in this boardroom, our police department will be partnering with Lower Merion Community Watch to provide patrol training for residents who are interested in being part of our Community Watch program. Getting involved with Lower Merion Community Watch is a great way to make a positive impact in your neighborhood. The program is open to township residents who are at least 18 years of age. Registration is required for the Community Watch Patrol training. Please visit lmcommunitywatch.org for more information and to register for this training. And with that, I recognize the chairman of the Building and Planning Committee, Commissioner Grimes.
Thank you very much, acting chair of the meeting. The first item tonight is the escrow release. There's just one, so I will make the motion. I will move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to release funds held in escrow as improvement guarantees in accordance with Section 135-7 of the Township Code for the following: 1064 and 1080 Mount Pleasant Road, escrow release number 9 for $13,976. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Gavrin. Any commissioner questions or comments on this? Seeing none, is there any public comment on this matter?
No, there is no one online.
Thank you. So we will have the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. The next is on page 6 of our agendas. This is a resolution to authorize an appointment to the City Avenue Special Services District Board of Directors. I will move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of a resolution to appoint Timothy McGuire to the Board of Directors of the City Avenue Special Services District for a term that expires December 23rd, 2028. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Vice President Kramer. If anyone has any questions, Chris Leswing can comment on this. Anyone have any questions, comments? I will just note Mr. McGuire, I believe, is replacing Janet Giuliani, who was involved in City Avenue for many years, and with the change in ownership of the Bala Plaza buildings is no longer in that function. Mr. McGuire has also been involved and had a business on City Avenue for many years, so we thank both him and Ms. Giuliani for their past and anticipated service. So, is there any public comment on this motion? I see none. We will have the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands for aye. Any opposed? Seeing none. Any abstentions? Seeing none, motion carries unanimously. Next, on page 9 of the agenda, I am going to, this is the Historical Commission application. I will move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the following application as recommended by the Historical Commission at its meeting held on January 27, 2025, 1520 North Spring Mill Road, Villanova, Class 2, 2025-R-2. Approval to replace all wood windows, French doors, and shutters in the original section home, citing Secretary of the Interior Standards 9 and 10. Is there a second? Thank you, Vice President Kramer. We have Greg Pritchard is here and ready to make a presentation or answer questions. If anyone would, anyone would like him to do that, please just indicate that you would, and I will call him. I see nothing, so we will just see if there's any public comment. See no public comment. So unless anyone has thought up anything, we will call the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands, signifying aye. Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. The last item on the agenda on page 12 is the certificate of appropriateness, and I will move. There are two of them. Would anyone like? Actually, they're for the same address, but there are two of them. Would anyone like either of these to be considered separately? Seeing none, I am going to move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the following certificates of appropriateness as recommended by the Historical Architecture Review Board at their meeting held on February 4, 2025, 36 East Lancaster Avenue, Ardmore Commercial Historic District, 25-5, approval to install a wall sign above the storefront and an illuminated projecting blade sign on the front facade, citing Secretary of the Interior Standards 9 and 10, and 36 East Lancaster Avenue, Ardmore Commercial Historic District, 25-6, retroactive approval to install a new front entrance door and construct a pair of wood sheds at the rear elevation with a change to the design of the railing and pressure-treated wood elements to be painted or stained, citing Secretary of the Interior Standards 9 and 10. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Gavrin. If any commissioners like to hear Greg's presentation on this. Sorry, Craig. Any commissioners like to make any comments on either of these applications? Okay. Is there any public comment on this matter? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand, signifying aye. Okay, thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. Vice President and Acting Chair Kramer, I feel funny with our president sitting there, but that concludes the business of the Building and Planning Committee. Thank you,
Commissioner Grimes. Next up, we have our Public Works Committee, and I recognize its Vice Chair, Commissioner Woodring.
Thank you, Vice President Kramer. There are two items on tonight's agenda. The first, which is always a very hot topic of the year, is the presentation of the 2025 paving program. I'll ask that our Director of Public Works go ahead and present that list.
Good evening, everybody. As you can see, this is for informational only. What we do is every year we put together a paving list of what we have proposed to do for the year. And this year we're back more in line with our traditional paving of about 200,000 square yards versus the 300,000 square yards that we did last year. So last year was a catch-up year because the utilities were not able to complete a lot of their projects that they had scheduled. But this year, again, we are back to the normal 200,000 square yard in and about range. So we're hoping this year to see the cost of asphalt decrease some. We're hopeful, but again, it's a commodity-based product. So if anybody has any questions as to the list that's as presented.
I'll open it up for public comment. If anyone in the room, online? Nope. No? Any comments or questions from the committee? Commissioner Zeloff.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. Paul, can you tell us about the schedule?
The schedule. Well, until we have someone under contract, I will not be able to provide you with a schedule. Our hope is to do as we did last year, to put the bid out early this year as we did last year, so that we become the first priority for whoever wins the contract, and that we can bring them in before school lets out like we did last year. It took a lot of coordination between my office staff, the team at Panoni, and the contractor to be able to get started before the schools let out, but that allowed us to complete before Labor Day last year. So that is our goal this year. We'll have to see if if that works with the contractor's plans and schedules, but once we have awarded a contract, I'll be able to give you a better idea of schedule. And
So later this evening before us is paving equipment and materials for us to do some of the mill and pave with our public works crew.
Correct.
So doesn't that enable you to get started early?
What
Or
that-
on the schedule you're planning?
What that is there are sections of road that are not included in here, that are small areas, things that need attention immediately, those type of things that our staff does. We will be doing restoration because maybe we've done pipe work and so forth. That is the equipment we will use through the course of the summer. And it's also a demands contract, so, for asphalt and so forth, so that we have access and a set price.
Are you planning to come back in the March cycle with the contractor, award of contract for the paving contractor?
I think it may be actually April. By the time this gets posted on Penn Bid and goes through the process, it may be April or.
Does that give you a realistic chance to meet your schedule?
Yes,
Okay.
that's far earlier than it was 2 years ago and previously. We have moved it up.
It is not my normal practice to ask about specific roads,
Then
because I
don't.
know you have I know you have a very good system. But with that preamble, I'm going to break my normal practice, but do so with regard to a road that everyone in the room knows about. At least they know about the bridge. So the
Mill
county
Creek?
bridge that we talked about endlessly, that opened to great fanfare last April. For those of you who don't know, months later, it is now a utility work site. That is not the bridge, but the road going up to the bridge. So even though the utilities were encouraged to do their work while the bridge is under construction, they failed to do that. And so they are digging up Mill Creek Road just south of the brand-new bridge 5 days a week. And so I believe that the plan is that utility work will be finished this summer. So I thought that road would be on this list.
So, yes, we did our best to encourage said utilities to do their work
I have no
while the
doubt
bridge was
about that.
closed. And then shortly before the bridge was set to open, they presented us with permitting request, and the message conveyed to them was, in no way were we going to have continued road closure on Mill Creek Road, and that they needed to that they needed to wait at least till the next spring cycle this year before they could start. And we wanted it completed before school went back into session. That is the agreement we have from them, school for next year, so they have till September. I will need to get a completion date from them, but my understanding from staff is that they won't be completed, it wouldn't be completed in time to be included on this list. So we will either speak to them about them providing a contractor to pave curb to curb, or it will appear on the 2026 list. But it'll depend on their completion date.
Please keep us informed, and please accomplish option one.
We will do our best.
Thank
As you
you.
know, we can be very encouraging to the utilities.
Paul, sometimes you need to speak up for the hard of hearing like me. So can you say that again?
Sometimes we can be, people find us to be very encouraging in our words to the utilities.
I like to hear that. Thank you, Commissioner Woodard.
Thank you. President Simon?
Thank you, Commissioner Woodring, and thanks for this list, Paul. So I noticed once again, Ward 12 is not on here. which is fine, because as Commissioner Zeloff said, like, you have a system and you cycle, and our time will come. So that is not my question. My question is that we do have a number of streets that have undergone utility work, gotten torn up. Can you say just a little bit about like how you like what we should expect for that, and like how you think about like when to come in and I guess make it right again, I guess.
Well, if we, it depends on the commission, no, all kidding aside. All kidding aside. So, one of
There
the,
is no clout in this chair.
there is
There definitely
absolutely
is not.
none. There was no clout with me being Director of Public Works,
Yeah.
living on a corner and both streets around my house being torn up for 3 years. So there's no clout anywhere. But your ward, one of your issues is a state road. So that the utility will be completing their work, and they are responsible to have a contractor come in and pave curb the curb. My understanding is that will be done this year, 2026, by the utility company, since it's a state highway. So that's the agreement that's in place, and my understanding. Earlier today, you and I discussed 4 roads that basically complete a square within your ward. They will be they are already on our 2026 paving list. So what will occur is we will monitor the trench restoration, the final restoration of the trench, and monitor it through next year when it is milled and paved.
Right.
So,
Great.
but we already have a tentative 2026 list that's already going, so.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I appreciate, there are a lot of roads in the township, and you work your way through them, and, on a cycle, and it just runs incredibly well, so thank you.
Well, and also, a lot of our road resurfacing at this time is being predicated by or dictated by the utilities. We're doing a lot of work following the utilities, and when we're in a given area, we will look at the road rating around that area, and those with lower ratings, we will try to capture so that we get better buy price, because we're not remobilizing and so forth. Once the utility work's done, we will be working from our road rating system, which we do have in place, and that'll become the norm again.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Woodring.
Commissioner Burnham?
Ever so brief, thank you very much. And President Stein, I don't want to tell you that it wasn't until I left that chair that Writers Mill finally got paved, but I wasn't connecting those dots either. However, one is an observation, if I may, is that we're talking about 11.5 miles, and I think when, Paul, you were in that chair, the township wasn't doing more than 8, so it is improvement that is being done. But if we're talking about roads and smooth paving, I feel compelled to thank you and your crew for getting up this morning, and those roads were as clear as could be. As I left early in the morning, and it was as if there had been no event whatsoever. So thank you to everybody really was out there, in the wee hours of the morning cleaning our pavement. Appreciate
I will
that.
extend that to them, just so everyone understands. We started last night, not this morning. So yesterday, my staff came in the morning as they would for a regular shift, went home for 2 hours, and then came back in and worked through the night. So it's been a long day for all of us.
Yeah, and it was obvious. I am sure I am not the only one. That everybody here would agree, as well as the residents. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other comments, questions? Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. With that, we'll move on to the second item. This is a resolution for the revision of an official sewage facilities plan for 951 Idlewild Road. I will start by making a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of a resolution revising the official sewage facilities plan by accepting a sewage facilities planning module submitted by the owners of 951 Idlewild Road for the installation of an individual on-lot sewage disposal system and authorizing the submission of the revised official sewage facilities plan to the Department of Environmental Protection for approval. Do I have a second? Thank you, Vice President Kramer. I'll call on our township engineer for an explanation.
Just briefly, it's a two-lot subdivision that was previously approved. Preliminary plan was previously approved by the board. The parent tract is served by an on-lot system. The developer, or the homeowner, has opted to install an on-lot system for the second property because public sewer service by gravity main is not accessible for that property. DEP has flagged it because it is in a growth area by the township and has asked that, that the township amend their sewage facility planning module, or sewage facility plan, to allow the property to use on-lot septic as their option for sewage disposal.
Thank you. First, start with opening the floor for public comment. Anyone in the room?
It's basically a pump, isn't it?
Anyone online? With that, are there any questions or comments from the committee? No? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Abstention? Madam Secretary, that passes unanimously. And that closes the business of the Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Commissioner Woodring. Our next committee meeting is that of the Finance Committee, and I recognize its chair, Commissioner Zella.
Thank you very much, Vice President Kramer. I will do my best to match the rapid time of the prior two committees, but I'm not making any promises. There are 6 items on tonight's Finance Committee agenda. The first item is for the committee to hear from our Public Works Director, primarily, about the 2025 Equipment Fund Asset Replacement Schedule. Adam, are you going to introduce Paul?
I sure will.
Okay.
And I'll kick things off. Good evening, Commissioners. Before you tonight, to start off, is the 2025 Equipment Fund Asset Replacement Purchases, an annual item where we review the anticipated purchases in the upcoming year. There are 34 replacement assets at a total approximate cost between $4.8 to $5 million. The largest single item on there is a significant purchase of a refuse horizontal grinder in the amount of 1.3 or 1.4 million. This isn't the type of thing that you see hooked to a trailer of a tree company that comes to your neighborhood. This is a trailer-sized, 18-wheeler-sized piece of equipment that can grind up entire trees, and I'm sure Paul can give you more information on that particular piece if you have any questions. Your packet includes some information about alternative fuel vehicles. In this year's replacement schedule, there are 3 hybrid vehicles suggested for asset replacement. In that analysis, the current electric capacity limits and operational use suggested those hybrids as opposed to fully electric EV vehicles, of which the current township currently owns 10 EVs. Looking at the equipment fund overall, we ended 2024 with about $7 million in cash in our equipment fund, but almost $6 million of outstanding orders. Of those outstanding orders from prior years, we only anticipate about $4 million of those even being delivered in 2024. So that speaks to just the continued supply chain issues that we're witnessing in the equipment fund. On a budget basis, the equipment fund ended 2024 pretty much within budget, a little bit of savings on the vacancy savings of personnel. Fuel and oils were positive, over 100,000 of savings there, and that offset some added overages in repairs and maintenance due to the length of time some of our vehicles are being held on to due to those supply chain issues. But with that, I'll open it to the floor and be happy to answer any questions or pitch them over to Paul.
Thank you, Adam. Are there any, let me start over. Does the member of the public in the room have any questions or comments? Seeing none, our secretary is indicating no one on Zoom has any public comments. So on Adam's presentation, does anybody have any questions or comments on the committee? Commissioner Corky.
Thank you, Commissioners. Adam, this will probably be one that will get pitched over to Paul. It's great to see hybrids on the list, a little disappointing not to see EVs. I know that we purchased those Lightning trucks. I'm curious what the performance with them has been like and why the 4x4 pickup truck needs to be a hybrid as opposed to one of those or something similar.
So I would like to just ask, Paul, were you planning to make a presentation?
I had not.
Okay.
figured-
I thought you were planning to make a
Well, what I'm
presentation.
going to do is, through answering of questions, provide additional information and so forth.
We'll do it that way.
I
Okay.
misunderstood your statement, sorry.
Well, I thought Paul was going to present also. So I guess you'll cover all the things you want to cover through Q&A.
Yes.
Okay.
So, Commissioner, the answer to your question is the 3 vehicles that are being proposed as hybrids, those individual vehicles, the operators of them, we have tried the Lightning vehicles with those individuals, and the charging, the length of charge and the ability for those individuals to keep those vehicles charged did not work. The first vehicle, that individual essentially, with running in and out and doing what he has to do, on average, every week, that truck sat for a day to recharge on top of the intermittent charges that he was able to do during the course of the day. And that's what we found for all 3 of these drivers, that an EV, with the amount of mileage they drive and the schedule that they run, they didn't have time to really plug in for extended lengths of time to charge the battery. That is why, one of the reasons why these vehicles were chosen to replace the vehicles that we're looking at.
So do we have a charging capacity shortfall, or is it just the nature of the work would require extra vehicles while the others charge?
Twofold.
Okay.
In that, yes, if at our current capacity, we would need extra vehicles to be able, we are doing that with these individuals. They are driving a different vehicle on the days that the vehicle goes for a full charge. That said, we do have a capacity issue that this year we will be working on with Paloma and with some engineers, because currently we are running into capacity issues with our infrastructure within the township. Most of our buildings are older buildings and our facilities are older, and the capacity of the electric has been used to its full capacity. So we're looking at what we would need to do to upgrade the infrastructure throughout the township to be able to put in the additional chargers as we grow. Another issue with that is our parking lots and such are built in such a way, they're small, we don't have room for center islands and so forth. So we will need to look at how we position the chargers, because we can't put them in the middle and so forth. So will we have enough boundary around the parking lots to be able to put in, enough chargers to meet the need of the fleet? So there's a lot of considerations. We've met with the engineers several times. We had a meeting this week. It was a day or two. You'll have to excuse me. It's been a long day since yesterday. But
I'm sure.
But that said, we've met with them on Monday and defined more of our scope of work for this year. We took their preliminary study. We took our electrician, our fleet manager, our facilities, and we went through the report that they had given us and said we were going to need additional information in these areas, so that way we can plan our capital spending and projects to be able to grow.
Thank you. The leadership of the Sustainability Committee has been discussing ways to accelerate our EV transition, and we have a priorities workshop coming up next month that we would like to make this one of those priorities. So maybe I can take this offline. You can help us craft what that priority recommendation should look like, because I think this is an issue that we would like to tackle and to make it so that we can replace these hybrids and other vehicles with electric vehicles in future years. Thank you.
If I could add.
Yes, please do.
We don't want to sugarcoat this, you know, we can't charge more vehicles at this point at this building or at the Public Works facility, which means we're probably going to need an electrical upgrade to those facilities, which means we could be looking at substantial dollars from PECO to run new service lines to both facilities. And that's what we're going to spend time this year figuring out what it's going to cost us and what we may have to come back to you with the capital plan in the fall to say, this is what it's going to cost to get us additional electric capacity. Don't want to sugarcoat it because it looks like it will probably be expensive.
Can you add to that? Can you give us a range?
At this point, no, we can't.
So there is a lack of Class 3 supercharger capability in this township overall. I have to drive to King of Prussia if I want to charge my car in a time period shorter than hours. It would be great if the upgrades to our buildings could also somehow benefit the public overall. Are you recommending that rather than this being a sustainability committee priority, it should be a public works priority or a finance committee priority or all of the above?
I think it's sort of shared. Yeah.
Okay. And I will just add, Commissioner, when we spoke to the engineers, we did discuss level 2s and level 3s. And, you know, one of, you know, our comments and so forth was, as you move to a level 3, the amount of power that comes in goes up, and that's going to take those costs, and it may double or triple. And with just, you know, back a napkin, looking at the police administration building, we know that the upsize in the electric is going to require an underground vault and a transformer and so forth, and then that cuts down on park. So it's not just the power, it's what the domino effect is, and that's what we need to look at so that we can capture a good understanding of cost.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Gilda Kramer.
It's my understanding that we are not exactly on track now to meet our goals of you know, transition away from our current fleet. And I just wanted to make the comment that I think that we need to take a good hard look at what our goals are and our timetable for our goals, and then maybe make some compromises in order to try to meet our goals, or else we're going to fall short of what has already been established as a priority of this board. I don't understand, you know, I did some calculations based on these vehicles, and it looks to me like they are being driven, hybrid, the vehicle number 1, hybrid 1, is being driven 185, 186 miles per week. Number 2, 227 miles per week. And number 3, 168 or 169 miles per week. And I don't really understand why these vehicles could not be charged on the weekend, because the range for electric vehicles is increasing. We just upgraded our Bolt to an Equinox this year, and they're getting about 260 miles per charge. And I don't understand why these could not be electric vehicles charged on the weekend, dropped off at the end of the week at the location where we have charging capacity, and picked up on a Monday, and should be good for the entire week or close to it. And why if it needed after 3 days, if it was a busy week, it needed to be recharged after 3 days, why it couldn't be dropped off at night and picked up the following morning. And I was wondering if you could explain that.
Well, first, let me start off with, you said about our goal. Right now, we are well ahead of anybody in this area on our EV purchases. And we continue to review and try to find vehicles that meet our performance needs, and we will continue to do that. As to your comments on why can't they be charged on the weekends and so forth, understanding that these three individuals, these three vehicles, these are emergency personnel. These are individuals that are on call 24/7 a day. So these vehicles are take-home vehicles, so that they can come in the middle of the night. They can come on a Saturday when there's an expected snowstorm. They then drive these vehicles during a snowstorm to do road inspections and so forth. There are certain individuals within the organization that are classified as essential, and these three individuals are classified as essential employees. So they are given the vehicle. They made, last night, two of these individuals were out throughout the night driving their vehicles to support the plowing operations. There's several others. We have the individual that runs the sewer department. He might get a call at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, Saturday or Sunday, for a sewage break or a sewage leak. So that is why these vehicles are being suggested to be hybrid, so that they're available and able to go at any time for these individuals.
Have you looked into installing a charger at the homes of these employees? It's not very expensive to do that, and simply reimbursing the electric cost.
Commissioner, I would say that's a conversation that is above me, because that's asking an employee to take on something at their own home. I can say from my prerogative that I wouldn't be able to install a charger at my own home, because my panel in my basement for my main panel is 200 amps, and that is maxed out. Even my sub panel that runs to my garage is 100 amps. That is maxed out. I have no capacity to add anything at my home at this time without upgrading my service. So I can't speak for the other individuals, but I'm just using my home as an example. I wouldn't be able to do that easily, to have a dedicated circuit just for this. But again, a conversation about chargers at home would have to be something that Ernie and Brandon would have with the employees and so forth. That's something that is a policy decision that is well above me.
I think that should be explored, as well as the cost of upgrading the electrical service, which is not that great, because we had to do that when we first put our charger in. And it was not that expensive. It was, at the time, it was like $1,700 to upgrade the service and install the charger when we first did it. And that's not a tremendous cost to have the convenience and the ability of employees to charge, come home, plug it in, which is what we always do with our vehicles if we are going to have any extensive use. This requires like a rethinking of the way in which we do business, perhaps. If we want to meet our sustainability goals, not compared to other communities, but compared to what we set out as our goals, then we may need to rethink the way in which we do business. And I would encourage the township to have some discussion on these issues.
I will also offer, Commissioner, that two of these individuals, these are on-street parking vehicles, so it won't be as simple as a charger on their wall. There will be a need to run conduit and stuff out to the street if that were what the township chose and negotiated to do.
I'm just
saying, and we do look at
explore this.
different ways in which we do things. We assess how we are doing things and will be doing things in the future as we make all of our decisions.
Well, we, over 4 years ago, first put funding into our CIP to create EV charging capacity. And I guess I'm just expressing a little frustration and disappointment that here we are 4 years later, and we don't have the capacity, and we don't even have the analysis done on how we can get the capacity. And I just would urge that this become a priority for the township.
Okay, I'm going to go next. I thought Paul was presenting. Paul Paul, not only do I thank you for the ongoing, continuing commitment and analysis of Public Works and Fleet to our fleet acquisition, including evaluating hybrids and EVs, but I would like to be able to say the same to Pietro, who was your fleet manager. I see that he's not here, but I suspect that's because
He's in the lobby, actually. He,
I was going to say because he was on snowplow duty last night, which you explained to us by email late this afternoon. Can you talk to us about the life of our fleet? Because you did respond to an email about that today, but I think it's important for everybody to hear. You have a set life for the fleet, but you evaluate individual items every year to see if it makes sense to extend their life. So tell us about that.
So each piece of equipment, we have a given life cycle that we've developed for each of those. So throughout the course of the year, Pietro and myself, we review what equipment, what's coming on the market and so forth. But late fall, September of each year, October, we sit down with each department. We look at their scheduled pieces of equipment for that year, what is to be proposed to be replaced. We review each of those pieces of equipment, their maintenance records, their performance. We ask if they've had any issues beyond, the maintenance and so forth. A piece of equipment that is performing extremely well, has low maintenance cost, we will move it out a year. We discuss it with the department, but we decide we're moving it out a year. That piece of equipment then goes through the same review the following year. And if it's still performing at that level and the maintenance costs are reasonable and low, we will move it again and again and again as needed. But we also may bring forward a piece of equipment that's not scheduled for replacement, but is doing extremely bad, has extremely high maintenance costs. We have gotten pieces of equipment that, for lack of a better term, have been somewhat of a lemon, or the life expectancy hasn't been what we would like from it. There are years where certain manufacturers put out engines or chassis that just didn't perform as we would like, and we have to shorten that life cycle. And if we do so, we then schedule that piece to be replaced and look at how we're going to do it. So every piece of equipment that's up for replacement gets reviewed, and anything that's underperforming gets reviewed before we put together our final recommendation and suggestion, our equipment list. But we go through very extensively. We even go through to the level of meeting with the police department and going through each piece of equipment that will be going into their vehicles. The computers, the recording system, the computer mounts. We spend a lot of time to get the vehicles correct.
Great, I think that's very helpful, because if the life can be extended, it is, and if it would also adjust your thinking about future vehicles and their useful life.
And what we have also done, working extensively with Eric the last couple of years before he left us, smoothing our purchasing, in that we instead of having ups and downs, we smoothed out the requisitions, so that we previously the township had ordered 15 trash trucks all in 1 year, so that spiked and hit the equipment fund. We've done away with that. We spread that out so that for the borrowing and so forth, it's a more balanced fund, and that way we can also monitor the fund as to if we see shortfalls. So, Pietro, I tip my hat to him, because he's the guy who does it. I'm the individual he talks to and discusses, but Pietro he's put in a lot of time and effort into this.
I have no doubt about that, thank you. And my guess is that Adam will be able to do the same thing that his predecessor did in regard to smoothing our equipment purchases.
Yes. He's working with us. quite well.
And speaking of Adam, he made a valiant attempt to describe a piece of equipment on here that's $1.4 million, just one. A refuse wood brush horizontal grinder. Since it's a significant contributor to the 5 million or so that's on the list, can you tell us what this is and why we need it?
So first, let me start off with the piece that we're replacing is now almost 16 years old. And in the last 3 to 4 years, it has been out of service more than it's been in service. We've had to have bearings made for all kinds of items to keep it functional as we went through our process of evaluating new equipment. What this piece is, if you've ever been to the Kegel complex and you've seen the piles of brush and logs and everything that the homeowners bring in, that we bring in, it's the big blue machine that all this gets loaded into that we create our wood chips and compost with. So the one that we have now is called a tub grinder, where everything is loaded in the top, almost like putting it into a cereal bowl, and it grinds downward and gets out. The new piece of equipment that we're looking at, because they are kind of out of favor, that type of equipment has kind of gone by the wayside. If you've ever seen a tree crew that's out chipping brush and so forth, this is like one of those, but much larger and almost like it's on steroids, so that we can do the larger capacity logs and all like we do now. So that is what this piece of equipment
Great.
is. And when we looked at the range of equipment, these were, some of these went upwards of $2+ million. Over $2 million, some of these. So Pietro was very good in getting the ones that we wanted to test it brought in so that we could see how it would function in our facility and that it would meet our needs.
Great, thank you. So in the, when it comes to alternative fuel vehicles, Public Works and Fleet have been looking at what's available in the marketplace, testing, pilot testing for a number of years. I mean, you and Pietro lives this and are working at it all the time, as I understand it. And you are evaluating equipment to see if it meets the needs of Public Works and police and parks and users of our equipment. And in some cases, I guess 10, since we have 10 EVs, it was judged to meet our needs. Is that the case now that Public Works and Fleet has not in Public Works, but Fleet has reviewed and understands the use of EVs? Have they been able to meet the needs of the users of those vehicles?
With the exception of a few, yes. They've worked well. I will tell you that the one unmarked police vehicle, well, the police have 2 unmarked electric vehicles. One is used by, it's not used by the day staff in the sense of police officers, it's used more by the detectives and so forth. That meets their needs. They're not on the road, they're not out and about all the time. When they do have to go long distance, they don't take that vehicle because sometimes they go to New York or wherever for meeting with other departments and so forth. So they like that vehicle for that. The other vehicle that's undercover, the regular patrol officers that use that, they like it because it's different from what we normally use, and they've been able to surprise the public that's basically speeding. They're able to surprise them in that sense, but they're only able to use it for a single shift, not a 24-hour shift. They can use it for a 12, but not a 24. But parking services, it has worked out well for them. Building and planning, it has worked out for them. a little awkward at times because our chargers are at Kegel for building and planning, and they report there first, then come here, and then have to report there at the end of the day.
You know, I think that when it, did you want to add?
You didn't mention, we have had some problems with the lightnings.
Yes.
In that, in cold weather, you're losing, what, 40% of your capacity?
Actually, 50% of the
50%.
capacity. We've had that problem. We had a brand new parking service vehicle with 187 miles that needed a brand new battery. We have had an issue with the one police unmarked that they had to go to the dealer and they had it for several weeks because the wiring harness burned up. So we've had issues, yes. The lightning, we had the frunks were opening, windows weren't going down. So we've had our share of problems, yes. I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
Good, good, okay. So the market that determines what's available in the way of equipment that the township procures to meet its needs. My view has always been that eventually we'll be able to find in the marketplace EVs that meet our needs, and you're constantly evaluating that, and you'll report to us annually. And that hasn't occurred beyond the 10. And if our goal, which was a round number of 2030, can't be met, then because the marketplace doesn't provide vehicles, EV vehicles to meet our needs, then we'll have to adjust our goal. That's how I see it. So let's talk for a moment, the three hybrids that are proposed in the list. You provided us some supplemental information today, which shows that there's a significant premium to acquire those. The total is $40,000 of premium, and it's roughly, if you take the three of them, it's 1/3. So it's a 34% premium over non-hybrid vehicles to acquire those. So there are probably some savings, and there may be other costs. Can you just tell us a little more about that with these three vehicles?
Well, these are the hybrids, yes. As you noted, there is a cost differential that is more than what it would be to buy there's a cost differential that is clearly more than what it would be if we went with traditional, ICE vehicles. As you noted, it's about 34%. As I noted, we evaluated and had to recommend the hybrids for these individuals just because of the performance. I don't know much more that I can offer.
Are there additional costs?
With the hybrids?
Yes.
Well, I mean, in the sense of the initial purchase, everything else is going to probably, be about the same as a traditional vehicle. You will incur the same type of maintenance and repairs as you would traditional ICE vehicle, because these are the non-plug-in hybrids. So it runs with the hybrid runs when it can, and then it also has a gas engine that runs. So you will still have oil changes. You will still have all the mechanical components that you would with a traditional ICE vehicle.
I wonder if it makes sense to pay such a significant premium for hybrid vehicles. That's not a question for you, that's just my observation. Paul, thank you. I have confidence in the good work of Fleet and Public Works in evaluating our fleet and reporting out annually. So do other committee members, Dr. Rossman?
Thank you. Couple things. The tree muncher. I'm used to Fargo and it can accept a human body. But yours is a much different one for $1.3 or $4 million. It's stable, it's on 15 wheels or something, or?
It is much larger. It has, if you were to take what you would see out on, when someone is cutting down a
Right.
tree, this has a much larger feed. In other words, it has a
Okay.
conveyor belt
Yep.
and so forth that it uses to help get the brush into the chipper part, because we're loading up to like 48-inch diameter logs into it and so forth. Plus, you know, our standard tree chipper have a couple hundred horsepower.
Yep.
This is over 1,000 horsepower to be able to handle the capacity that we do. We will still be sending out the even larger logs to a gentleman that picks them up for us at no cost to get rid of them. But this will allow us to keep working at the capacity that we do now.
I understand, thank you. And just for public record, I'd like to compliment you and everybody else that works in Kegel. I've visited, they can take apart a dump truck, they can take apart a trash truck, they can jack up the trash cup. So for public record, everyone should go out and see it. It's quite amazing how they maintain our vehicles in that facility. One other comment is that I think the desire for us to become fossil fuel free has far outpaced the ability for electric vehicles to provide us with the service that we require. Talking to many of the people in the different departments, I guess building and planning is separate EVs, aren't they?
They are, but
Yeah.
they are under our purview. Everybody who has a vehicle, police or whatever, goes through Public Works. We're the keeper of the equipment fund and vehicles.
So I don't know if it's the same for you, but just to make a comment, they have to have them charged at Kegel. And I believe, there are 2 chargers there or 3 chargers, but they have to drive them there, leave them there on township time, and then come back here on township time. And they work, but if they have computers plugged in, you can't turn them off because you have to reset the computers. It sucks up a lot of energy. And during the winter and sometimes the hot summer months, they don't have the charge that gives them the ability to use the vehicle all day. Am I correct in that?
You may be correct in that. I haven't received feedback from building and planning. Pete may have, but I have not. I've gotten more of the feedback of the larger issues.
No. I mean, it's a nice ride down Woodbine Avenue or whatever, and I'm sure they don't mind doing that, but we are paying for that service, and it's just not working. It's going to happen any day now, but it's not happening yet, from what I've seen. Thank you.
Before we go to the next person, I just want to correct something I said, because our very capable manager corrected me after the fact. I incorrectly stated that the decarbonized goal is 2030. The decarbonized goal for our fleet, according to our sustainability plan, is 2045, so it's 20 years away. So I think that also is good to know. Thank you, Ernie. Okay, with that, President Sinai.
Thanks, Commissioner Zoloff. So I think quite rightly, a lot of the conversation tonight has turned to how do we do our equipment more sustainably or energy sustainably. I think it makes a lot of sense. I just wanted to address some of the comments about what the township is doing. I think the fundamental friction, fundamental difficulty is that EVs either need more battery capacity or they need rapid charging, right, in order to be a good function for the township. And I think Commissioner Courtney, hit the nail right in the head, which is like, we need level 3 charging, right? The township does and the public does. To that, I think the township is doing the right thing. I think what I heard from Manager McNeely, really for the first time for me tonight, is the township is looking how to massively increase our charging capacity, not incrementally increase our charging capacity. Right? We have finite management and staff time in the township. We should be looking for big, impactful things to do. Big impactful things to do take planning, it's going to take money, it's going to take time. And I think it is very forward thinking of the township to be working on that, like the big thing we can do. That's going to take a big power drop from PICO, it's going to take infrastructure, and we'll have to decide as a board where we want to spend the money, but we can only decide that if it's brought to us, and it can only be brought to us if there's a plan. Right? To me, that is where we should be spending our energies rather than, sort of nickel and diming around the corners. And honestly, we are not going to insist that our staff, install charging at their houses as a requirement of employment here, right? Like, we can give them incentives, but we're not going to make them do it. And so how do we solve that? Level 3 charging. How do we get to level 3 charging? I got a really big cable going to a power thing, right? Like, we're going to have to figure that out. So I was happy to hear what I heard tonight. I think we were on the right track. I'm glad that's, on the agenda today. Commissioner Courtney, agenda this year, Commissioner Courtney mentioned the priorities meeting in March. I think the township understands our priorities. I think we can underscore those priorities in March. I think that's a good thing to do. But I think we should keep our eye on the ball for where we can make really big impact, because we only have so many bullets that we can get done. I think we all wish things could happen faster, right? We all wish they would happen before, but at the end of the day, people have to do these things, and they have lots of things to do, and we have to manage it through what can actually be implemented, right? So let's get the most for what we do. Anyway, that's my rant, sorry.
Okay.
Thanks, Commissioner Zoloff.
Other committee members with questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Paul. Please thank Pietro. Thank you, I guess, Adam and Brandon, you're staying. And Paul, you're welcome to stay.
I'm going to stay in case there's questions.
This item was not on for a vote tonight, so it was on as a presentation from our CFO and our Director of Public Works. We will move to item 2 on our agenda this evening, which is for the Finance Committee to consider awarding a contract. This is for manhole frame covers and inlet castings. I'm going to move that the Finance Committee recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to award a contract for annual highway equipment rental to EJUSA Inc. in accordance with bids received on Thursday, January 16th, 2025, with the recommendation of the Chief Financial Officer and the approval of the Director of Public Works in the total bid amount of $186,502.25. Do I have a second? Vice President Kramer does so. Adam, tell us more.
Well, as you mentioned, Commissioner Zoloff, that this is a 2-year requirements contract in the amount of $186,502.25. This EJUSA was the sole bidder and has been for quite some time. We included in the packet for these and the next 2 contracts the unit price history. Compared to the prior 2-year contract, unit prices have gone up 14.3%. Which wasn't nearly as bad as the prior contract, which was almost 80%. So more in line with our history with EJUSA and their bids outside of that last contract.
Thank you, Adam. I'm going to amend the motion since our manager has once again he didn't correct what I said, but he realized the motion was not correctly prepared. So I'm going to amend it because it's as follows. The Finance Committee recommends to the Board of Commissioners approval to award a contract for manhole frame covers and inlet castings to the following low bidder in accordance with the bids received on Thursday, January 16th, 2025, with the recommendation of the Chief Financial Officer and approval of the Director of Public Works to EJUSA Inc. in the total bid amount of $186,502.25. Do I have a second? I do, from Vice President Kramer. The motion's been made and seconded. The change in the motion was that there's not annual highway equipment rental, but rather manhole frame covers and inlet castings. So, thank you. All right. Does the member of the public in the room have any questions or comments, or online? Thank you. Time for the committee to comment and ask. Adam, there's only one bidder. Are there other bidders ever available? I guess our Director of Public Works knows the answer.
This market is very small. Once in a while, we will get a second bidder. We continually, like everything else, when we go to trade shows and so forth, and conferences, we do look for additional bidders to put on our list. It's a very small market that that are doing foundry work, so.
Thank you. I'll note that, as Adam explained, this is a requirements contract. It is 2 years, so the dollar amount is guidance. It is not a commitment to a unit, to a quantity, but it gives us unit pricing. And replacements are made on an as-needed basis based on evaluation by Public Works. Other committee members with questions or comments? Seeing none, the motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, raise your hand. Any objections? Any abstentions? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, that item passes unanimously. All right, the third item for the Finance Committee to consider is awarding a contract for the annual supply of roadway maintenance materials. I think that the motion is correctly written, and I'm going to move, following my script, I'm going to move that the Finance Committee recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to award a contract for annual supply of roadway maintenance materials to Glasgow, Inc., in accordance with bids received on Thursday, January 16th, 2025, with the recommendation of the Chief Financial Officer and the approval of the Director of Public Works for items 1, 2, 3, 6, 7A to 10B and 11 to 14, and a total bid amount of $707,288.75. Do I have a second? I do, from Vice President Kramer. Adam, tell us more.
Another annual annual requirements contract. As you can see, we fielded 2 bids for this. Glasgow was the lowest for competing items and the only bidder on several others. The unit price increase over the last few years has been relatively stable. This year, our 2 largest items, wearing course and 2A sub-base, came in around 2% additional cost compared to last year's unit pricing.
We certainly prefer this increase to the last item. Questions or comments from committee members on this contract award? Seeing none, the motion has been made and seconded. Did I ask for public comment?
I didn't.
Does the member of the public have a comment? Okay. Seeing no public comment, the motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, raise your hand. Are there any objections? Any abstentions? Madam Secretary, that item passes unanimously. Item 4 on our finance agenda is to consider awarding a contract for paving equipment rental. That is related to the item that was in the Public Works agenda earlier this evening. I will move that the Finance Committee recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to award a contract for annual highway equipment rental to Stevenson Equipment, Inc., in accordance with bids received on Thursday, January 23rd, 2025, with the recommendation of the Chief Financial Officer and approval of the Director of Public Works, in the total bid amount of $182,100. Do I have a second? Vice President Kramer comes through again. Adam, tell us more.
Unlike the last contract, we saw very high unit price increases on this item. The monthly rates jumped anywhere between 15 to 90%, and we saw doubling to almost tripling on the weekly rates. The silver lining of this, there are 4 items that we bid for rental. We own comparable equipment for items 2, 3, and 4. This contract just helps us in the event that those machines go down, that we'll have something that we can pick up and not miss any work. The pavers, I reached out to our fleet supervisor. If these numbers suggest that we invest in our own, as I understand it, they're very finicky pieces of equipment that can break down a lot under this contract. As soon as that happens, we get a replacement, whereas if we had our own, we would still be looking for a rental in those likely occurrences annually where that thing would be out of commission for some time.
Thank you, Adam. Does the member of the public in the room have any comments or questions? Lori, online? None? Okay, thank you. So is it possible, Paul, that there will be very little, if any, rental of this equipment in the course of the coming year if things go our way?
With the exception of the paver itself, we shouldn't really need to engage the other equipment. Several years ago, we made the investment in some of this equipment by adding it to the equipment fund, because when we did the cost analysis, it was cheaper that way, and they were pieces of equipment that were more durable. As for the paver itself, as Adam has indicated, it's not a piece of equipment that we wish to have as ours. It's a maintenance nightmare, and that's one of the reasons why our contract vendor for the last several years is not a bidder, because they're no longer renting them. It's getting very hard to find that, so it'll be a task in the upcoming years to make sure that we have one available to us.
Great, thanks for that. Thanks very much for that explanation. Do other committee members have questions or comments on this item? Seeing none, the motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, raise your hand. Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, we have another unanimous vote. Item 5 on the agenda is next. That is a resolution in lieu of a contract award, an unusual occurrence, but that happens in the case of an emergency. Adam and Paul, tell us more.
So in December, there was reports of a strong odor in the Merion Road and City Ave intersection. In the course of televising the sanitary sewer system, baseball size hole in the piping was found, and some other defects were found that needed to be attended to immediately per Department of Environmental Protection guidelines, which necessitated moving before a typical, the timeline of a typical bid and public bid award process. So that work was done expeditiously, and we provide here before you ratification of the largest contract that was a part of that work in the amount of $47,700 to in situ form for the bulk of the work. In your packet, we also include some other supplemental purchases that were a part of this repair to give you some information on the total cost of about $60,000 to meet these emergency repair needs.
Thank you, Adam. To move things along, I'll move that the Finance Committee recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of a resolution ratifying the award of a contract for emergency repairs for the Merion Road sewer lining to in situ form in the amount of $47,700. Do I have a second? I do, from President Sinai. Does the member of the public have any questions or comments in the room or online? Seeing none, Do committee members have any questions or comments? I do. Paul, don't we have slip lining capability and equipment within Public Works?
We do for small repairs. This was rather large. It went under the rail line, so it was very complicated. Some of the other equipment you'll see is a pump and all. We had to do bypass pumping and so forth. So it was above what we have as our capability. What was done here is what we do through the CIP every year, the infiltration, lining, and so forth. Same process, because it was such a large scale. It was, well above our capacity.
That's a very helpful explanation, and I think it's a credit to Public Works that this is a rare occurrence that we have to procure via emergency. We have a slow and cumbersome procurement process as imposed upon us, but we use it and we plan and we make it work. And so, as I said, this is unusual. Do committee members have any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, the motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, raise your hand. Any abstentions? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, that emergency award via resolution passes unanimously. Okay, the final item on the Finance Committee agenda for this evening is something that we, I believe, are required by state code to do, given that we have a separately elected tax collector. We have to relieve that tax collector of collection once the year ends. I think I have that right. Adam, can you tell us more?
Yes, so our elected tax collector, our treasurer, his mandate is to collect current year taxes. So at the end of the year, he turns over any unpaid taxes to the County Tax Claim Bureau. So this is a annual resolution we bring before you to exonerate the treasurer of collecting the 2024 taxes. It also gives us a moment to reflect on the prior year. We are turning over to tax claim an amount under $350,000 on a total tax levy of $32.6 million, which just speaks to the tax collection rate of the township, which is superb. Last year it was 97.2%, which it's really hard to get above 97% in any year, because that's inclusive of discounts, and most folks, particularly those escrowed, pay in the discount period and take advantage of that 2%.
I'll move that the Finance Committee recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of a resolution exonerating the township tax collector from collection of 2024 township real estate taxes. Do I have a second? I do, from Vice President Kramer. Does a member of the public have any questions or comments in the room or online? The answer to both questions is no. Committee member questions and comments. Adam, this exoneration is for township real estate taxes only. So does the school board and do the county commissioners do the same thing?
Yes, our treasurer collects those taxes as well. So part of his packet in January that he turns over and gets signatures actually from our township manager and the chief of managers of those institutions. All that's done at once.
Right, even though the tax collector has an office in the township building, the tax collector collects taxes for the taxpayers for the school district and for Montgomery County.
Within that reside within Lower Merion Township, yes.
Yes. Committee members with questions or comments, Commissioner Bernhardt.
Thank you very much. A couple of quick things, if I may. One is, this doesn't exonerate the taxpayers from paying. The county, right. The county's still able to go after them, or the school board does it. and it also becomes a lien upon their real estate. So nobody's, has a get-out-of-jail-free card, that's number one. And then the other thing, just wanted to do a little pile on, you're correct, the percentage of our collection rate is off the charts. I would challenge anybody to find another municipality that can even match what we do. This is so small of what we're turning over, which says a lot, I think, about our people as well as anything else. So with that, those comments, that's it. Thank you very much.
Other committee members with questions or comments on this final item for this evening? Seeing none, the motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, raise your hand. Are there any objections? Are there any abstentions? There is one abstention. That would be the spouse of the tax collector. That concludes our business for the Finance Committee tonight. President Sinai, I didn't quite outdo the other two committees, but we came close. Oh, excuse me. And I would say the same to Vice President Kramer in her very skillful management of this evening's proceedings.
Thank you, Commissioner Zelloff. And that concludes our business for this evening. Have a good night, everyone.